I think we decide. I actually do. I think that what we choose matters. So that's where hope comes in, because I think we do actually have a lot more power than we realize. But, we have to choose to exercise that power and use it in ways that are actually strategic.
This is Champaign is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champaign Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. Today I have Rebekah Mangles, and you may know them from such bands as 8 Count, their current project, Rebekah Mangles, and the band Annika Emily. Rebekah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're going to be listening to your song Mayday from the album Live from Coffeehouse. So without further ado, let's listen to the song.
Frankly, not sure which to be more concerned about. How the hell am I getting you?
Welcome back. So, of course, Rebekah, my first and most favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the music or was it the lyrics?
Good question. I think I was like fiddling around with some chords on the ukulele, and what came first was actually the oohs. So where I go, ooh, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I was like, oh, that's sick. And I was kind of like fiddling around, and I was like, da 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 da. It was almost like a simultaneous thing. That's really rare for me as a songwriter, where you have lyrics and music come to you at the same time. That's really a stars aligned moment because it's so rare. But I was like, they tell us to wait, and I was like, something to 8 da 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 da. You lie. And I just had to kind of fill in the blanks then of like what lyrics rhymed with 8 and wait and bait and then da 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 da. And I was like, oh, this is so sick. So I came up with the little, I think it's kind of a chorus, but I came up with that little section of the song first. And I wrote the song in 2023. It's probably my favorite song that I've written because it's become more and more relevant with time. But I actually did write it a while ago, back in 2023. And when I first wrote it, it had totally different lyrics in the verse. So I don't even remember what that version sounded like, but I know that I wasn't happy with it because it was so theoretical. When I wrote it, I was working with a vocal teacher named Ariel Ward. She's awesome. And I was just thinking, like, she's a songwriter as well. So sometimes in my lessons, we talk about songwriting and not just vocal practice. So I was like, what do you think of this song? You know, do you like the lyrics? And she was like, well, I really like the lyrics. I feel like if you're not happy with it, maybe work on it again and see what happens. Like, just rethink it and make it less abstract and make it more tangible and less theoretical, but more like actual. I think I rewrote it a couple months later, and I really liked the new version such that I was like, oh, I've got to sing this. So when we had our shows as Rebekah Mangles, even back in 2023, I think I was going by Mangles at that point, but yeah, now I use my full name. And we had a Coffeehouse gig, so then I recorded that version that you hear now, which is the new lyrics. I even change the lyrics sometimes, like, it's 2025 now, so sometimes I'll change the lyrics depending on whether I feel it would be appropriate. For example, there's one time where I say, doom scroll, stop, you gotta take this pull. Who is hotter? Is Michael, Fred, or Timmy? I don't know. I've changed that somewhat to be, stop, you gotta take this pull. Which is better? Is Google, Microsoft, or YouTube? Or Apple or YouTube? I don't know. Like, I liked it for a bit, but now I'm like, I don't know. I should go back to the people, because I feel like it expressed so much of, like, the irrelevance of what was going on in light of the other things that you're doom scrolling through, like war and genocide and Palestine, all of the other famines that are happening around the world in Sudan and the genocide in Congo, just everything being so overwhelming all the time. And then you encounter the most trivial thing that you've ever seen on the internet. And it's like, who do you think is hottest? This celebrity, or this celebrity? And it's like, right. I don't care who fucking cares. Like, it doesn't matter. And it's just like the worst thing you've ever seen. And then the next thing is like the stupidest thing you've ever seen. And that's the internet that we live on today.
Yeah, part of what I can't figure out today is what are the algorithms actually trying to do? Because sometimes it's like, I'm going to give you exactly what you want to see. Mm-hmm. And then other times it's like, I want to push something that I think you might want to see. Or even, I'm going to push something that might make you upset so that you respond, so that it triggers other responses to make that more visible to somebody else because it fits within somebody else's algorithm. And you could take one position of like, well, it's kind of nice that they're thinking about you, so to speak, and giving you what you want. However, it's very manipulative.
Yes.
And it's just, it kind of,
Yeah, it's like trying to rage bait you sometimes. But then, you know, at the end of the day, and this is what I tell my students, I teach public speaking. This is what I tell my students is that they're trying to keep you on the app. So its marker of success for the company is, has it kept you on the app for the longest amount of time as possible? And has it kept you doom scrolling for so long that you've like lost track of time? I think that's like really scary because we want to think that we have autonomy, whereas actually we're being baited to watch all of this online content. And it's good to be educated. Like, don't get me wrong, I've gotten a lot of like my political education and radicalization from some social media videos. I would say there's a lot of limits to that though, because a lot of my life experience mostly did that. And the stuff on the apps is very like, it's addicting. It's designed to keep you addicted, and it's designed to also make you feel hopeless. So it's not actually doing a lot of good for you. And I say that as if it's like not my problem also. I'm very addicted to my phone.
Right. But also in the same sense as I'm a podcaster, you're a musical artist. Mm-hmm. Somehow it's like at the same time, it treats us poorly, but also we need to feed off of it. And we also need to use it to get our information out. So, or our announcements out, our things, so that people know that it exists. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the scariest things, at least to me, is like, if I were to ever drop off of social media entirely, it'd be like I was dead. You know, like it's a really horrible feeling, but it's also like, well, I don't want to contribute to capitalism, but I also want to be able to eat. And
we all contribute to capitalism. That's not a choice. That's the thing, is the system is designed such that we literally don't have a choice. And you're totally right. Like, artists make their livelihood a lot of the times off of social media and marketing and exposure. I will say the social media platforms do want us to believe that, like, if we dropped off social media, it'd be like we were dead. It'd be like if we dropped off the face of the earth. And where would I get, my support from in terms of like my art and my livelihood? And I think that's why it's good that there's been a return to physical media. Not that it's the end all be all, but I do kind of miss the days where I would see more physical posters around and you could walk around and see advertisements for things. Not that we should be surrounded with advertising all the time, but I just mean it's nice to have other ways to connect with the artist besides just social media. I'm gonna plug someone right now if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So I watch this person on Instagram sometimes. Their name is Bacon's Bits on Instagram, and he's like a music industry worker, has worked with a lot of artists, and he says like the main thing is just that you're connected to your community. So whether that's through physical media and making sure people are aware of your shows, like reaching out to friends, especially individually, and word of mouth. And he found that word of mouth especially is actually the strongest indicator for whether people will listen to you, whether people will come to your shows. So I think that's fascinating, even in a digital age where we have so much access to social media all the time, that you should just be generating word of mouth, whether that's online or offline. It is possible to do. So I think that's been encouraging for me as an artist who doesn't love being on social media. Like, I kind of hate it. I hate that my job sometimes requires me to book bands and artists through social media, but I use it, but very begrudgingly at this point. And I just think that like it's good that there are other ways to do it, like especially with the movement to get off Spotify because their investment in like military in Israel right now and just the genocide that's happening in Palestine. I think that there's been a huge movement for artists to get off Spotify. I took my music off Spotify. I mean, it's not like I was generating any revenue from it anyway, so it's not like it was this huge sacrifice. It just felt like the right thing to do. But also, you know, it is good to also just sell CDs and vinyl because that's actually making more money for the artist than any of the major streaming services. I guarantee, like Spotify and Apple Music and all of these big, even Bandcamp is shitty at paying me. Like, I gotta be honest, my stuff is on Bandcamp, but like they have not been good at getting me paid based on what listeners have paid to listen to my music, and that frustrates me. So if you really want to get paid, like, physical media can actually be an alternative, and getting people CDs is actually kind of cool. And yeah, there's not a lot of CD players, but it's a collectible item, and if you really want to, you can buy a CD player for pretty cheap. I just think it's cool. I think I like physical media. I want to start making more zines and like CDs and, you know, t-shirts, so that like it's like we're generating word of mouth, not just online. I'm also of the generation that physical media is all and be all, kind of the way that you
enjoy music. So there's something also when you generate an album that is used only on streaming, there's a part that gets missed in the layout, or like how you print on the CD, or you print on the tape, or you print on the LP, or you generate the LP. There's a whole extra realm of visual art that can be done as well. And I feel like that also involves a community as well. Unless, of course, there's nothing wrong with you doing everything yourself. However, but if you reach out and share your vision with someone that creates art as well, that person also gets to be a part of that community that created this beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just too hopeful, but also as someone who has a tape label, I appreciate those that appreciate physical media as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's actually a really good thing to be too hopeful in our current climate. I think I would rather be much too hopeful than much too in despair.
Right.
I think that if I didn't have hope, then there would be nothing to live for at this point. So I lean on the side of being revolutionarily optimistic, which is not to say that I want to be blindly optimistic, but I just think we make the culture that we imagine. We incarnate the world that we believe in. So if we believe in a world that's always going to rely on social media and AI and these big tech companies and their billionaires running everything, then that's how we might live. But if we envision a world where something more is possible, something better, I think we actually will act as if we believe it.
I return to one of my favorite quotes ever, which is from Futurama, and it's Philip J. Fry, that says, "You can't quit hoping just because it's hopeless. You have to hope even more." And just cover your ears and go blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I try to think of a lot when I'm kind of everything's crap.
Yeah, everything's fucked. We're cooked, blah, blah, blah. And it's well, only if we believe we are. I don't want to get too much into it because I still want to discuss the song. But it's funny how we just started with the song and then immediately launched into discussing politics. But actually, that's what the song is about. So I am glad that we started that way. Because, I wrote it to have conversations like this. So that's kind of cool.
Well, I guess, not that I'm begrudgingly going back to the song, but...
Oh, man. No.
I'm just curious about your chord choices, your chord progression. I would classify this kind of in the B minor area, but then it does kind of the Picardy third of jumping into the B major at the end, which gives kind of not a shocking, but it also gives kind of a sense of hope, kind of returning back to it. And then you kind of, but the thing is that it cycles. So it's this, it starts back to this B minor. If I read it correct, I tried to do it with the guitar and with the ukulele, the 4 strings, sometimes the chording, I'm is that a G, or is that just
I would love to show you the chord progression on ukulele sometime. That's such an interesting interpretation of the Picardy third at the end when it goes to B major and then the chord cycle starts again, so we go back to B minor. Because I think, to me, when I wrote that, I was ooh, that's so much dissonance. And I think I liked it because the song was about cognitive dissonance and being told that everything's gonna be okay if you don't fight for your rights, if you don't join a union, if you don't show up to the protests and disrupt, actually disrupt, if we don't speak truth to power, it's all gonna be okay. And then that's very much what the power wants us to believe. And then me just being this is not sitting right with me. This is not, it doesn't feel like everything's gonna be okay. It feels that's kind of the opposite of what I said earlier, which I don't know that everything is going to be okay. I think we decide. I actually do. I think that what we choose matters. So that's where hope comes in, because I think we do actually have a lot more power than we realize. But, we have to choose to exercise that power and use it in ways that are actually strategic. So, and so me writing this song was going through the world and being I don't know, man, seems like everyone kind of just wants us to believe that just sit it out, it's gonna be fine, this is just another genocide that the US is complicit in and actively involved in as well. It's just how the machine operates. And then me being no, it's just wrong. This is all just wrong. And just feeling discontented with the world. And I think that emotion is so important right now. our discontentment and our cognitive dissonance with the world, just feeling like this is not how it's supposed to be, that's a very natural thing to feel. And I think it's good because it reflects the state of the world that we're in. So the minute we start recognizing like, yes, these are emotions are natural. It's natural to feel that like people losing their snap during the government shutdown is not okay. That's the start of something. That's the start of us organizing together. Nothing good ever came from complete contentment and apathy.
It's funny that you mentioned you came up with the ooh melodic line first, but then you fell into the chorus, which I was paying attention to the melodic line, and obviously you have a motif that's happening there, and it's of this kind of descending da 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 da. Da, 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 da. It's weird because I don't feel like the chords are necessarily descending. Like the chords are trying to be like, no, it's okay. But at the same time,
there's like a
you're
surprising
just
lift at the end. Yeah, but that's excellent. I've never done a like complete analysis of the melody in this song personally.
You know, sometimes we make good melodic lines that make sense in context that we may not have intended in the first place. And I absolutely love stuff that's like that kind of serendipitous.
Yeah, the whole writing of the song was so serendipitous. I feel like so many of my songs straight up fell into my lap. I feel so lucky. I feel like, oh my God, I want to sing this. Like, I wasn't always writing songs that I felt that way. You know, this is fine or this is whatever. And now I'm like, I don't know, at least 10 years into my songwriting process. I've been writing songs since I was really young, like 12. I guess I'm 25 now, so that would be over 10 years. I mean, I just didn't think of it as songwriting when I was 12. You know, I was like all the time, like creating melodies and like improvising on the piano and like making stuff, but I never really wrote it down. So I guess, is that still songwriting? I don't know.
I think so. Is there a sense of, if it doesn't lock down into history, say like in a recording or something like that, is that improvisational quality of creating something and then having it just kind of disappear into the ether? Sometimes I think that's kind of beautiful, but then it also makes me sad too. But you know,
yeah, it makes me sad that I didn't ever write it down. Because like some of the stuff I wrote, like I still remember bits and pieces of, but I'm like, why didn't you write stuff down? But then when I did, I started being like, oh, this could be a thing. Like, it was mostly a thing for me, too, where I was just, like, writing it because it helped me express myself. That's why a lot of people get into songwriting, and it's very true for me as well. And now I feel like, oh yeah, I've just been like blessed with this song from the heavens, as if I didn't do like any work to like all those years to put in all that work to get to where I am now. I very much did. I just still feel like, dang, I'm so lucky to like write stuff that I actually like.
I think it's interesting that your earliest foray into songwriting was, it almost sounds like you were playing. You were just kind of experimenting, but also, you know, when you make up adventures with your friends or whatever, but also when you write a song, there's that like, you kind of learn a structure of the world, so to speak. I don't know if that made sense, but
no, totally.
Like where you're like, oh, when I heard that in this other song, that's what's going on in terms of the chords and the melody and that. And it's this weird, you're making these connections in your brain. Yeah. And for me, that was one of the things about songwriting that made sense to me. But also, I think it's interesting the way that you described it as a way to express yourself. But sometimes I think this idea of songwriting in a way of like, I don't know exactly what I'm feeling, but I feel something, but I need to use this as a way to like squeeze out those thoughts, those memories, those ideas. And I feel like this feels like something that came out of that same way. Yeah.
It was simultaneously like instantaneous and also laborious, because I had to like sit with the first round of lyrics and be like, why don't I like this? What is wrong or not wrong with it, but like what could be better? And then like mull that over for a number of months and then just kind of come back to it and take another try. It's like, I don't often do that with my songs. I'm very much I just need to finish this. So when I sit down to write a song, a lot of the times I try to finish it in one go, because in my experience, if I drop it, I might not ever come back to it. It's the ADHD neurodivergence. So I very much want to be like, oh, okay, this is a done song. And like, I can fix the stuff later, but like, it actually came from this clip from Ed Sheeran. It was like an interview where he basically said, write shit, just finish it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, if that's what he says, I just need to finish it. And that's kind of why I started writing down my songs at all. As I was like, oh, well, like, these exist, but like, if I write them down, then they like exist in a more real way somehow. And I also get that feeling when my band and I are rehearsing our songs, and I'm like, I think it is just so amazing how like other people can hear my song now and like learn it. And that's crazy to me, because I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I'm hearing it out loud, something that was just in my head, and I literally made something from nothing. That is so cool.
I do have to point out one thing that I appreciated, and it's not my favorite thing, but we'll get to that later. But one of the things that I noticed, you mentioned earlier that you have a voice teacher, yes, somebody that you work with. I was thinking about how much breath control a lot of this song takes, because you'll finish with the chorus and even your ooze. I'm including the ooze as part of the chorus because it's kind of the companion to it. But you finish that, which takes a lot of breath. Like, ooze are just no consonants. It's just you're releasing just air, and then you just drop right into a verse right afterwards. And I appreciate that a lot, because I don't know if it comes through, particularly how much breath you're having to store and use judiciously, if one would say.
Yes.
And especially since this is a live recording, there's no magician that's stopping the recording and starting back again so you can jump in. So in this recording, I appreciate it's very clear that you're thinking about how much breath you need to get through these parts. And
it's interesting too, because now when we perform it a fourth down. So the recording is in B minor or B major or whatever. And now we record it, or we sing it in F sharp minor.
Whoa.
So it's that was also something I discussed with my vocal teacher, because I was like, this is really high and I want people to be able to sing it in the audience. And so sometimes at shows I'll tell them to sing at the end and they'll all go, ooh, oh. And I think that's so cool. And making it lower is making it more accessible, but it's also making it a little bit easier for me to sing. It's kind of like Chaperone recorded Good Luck Babe in like a D major, which is crazy high. She goes up to an F sharp above, high C, not above high C, but below high C. And then when she performs it, she's like, yeah, I'm not doing that in D. I'm doing that in C. She's like a whole step down.
Huh.
Yeah. But it's funny because the original recording is like a B minor and it's a performance still.
Yeah.
But I just decided it was like, I think it was a number of reasons. Like, I could perform it in B minor, but it's also like, if it's making it better for the audience to sing, it's a little less grating. I feel like the lower key also makes it a little more like
you could
gripping.
I was going to say you could do throaty with that too.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's like,
definitely.
That's just how I'm picturing it. When you do the last chorus after the fourth verse, you definitely are able to like put some nice force behind it.
Yeah.
And you're
100%.
Like half exasperated, half rage, which is kind of cool.
Exactly.
You know?
I've even performed it. Sometimes I've performed it solo. And one thing about performing it solo that is cool is I can speed it up at the end. So I've started doing that sometimes. I'm very experimental with my live performances. But I'm like, the time I get to, no way, worrying about my rent-a-bay, am I tolerating another day? I start speeding it up almost like it's a little bit manic. Like, kind of like you're going crazy, like you're actively going crazy in a system that's designed to fuck you over. And so the speeding up of it adds to that. And then I'm adding volume as well. That reminded me of another reason why we changed the key in live performances is because like, I like being able to really experiment with dynamics in this song. So I normally start out super quiet, then I'll get louder and louder and louder. And then around the bridge where I'm singing, you do too much to preserve the power. You prove through circumstances that you know it too. I like bringing it down again, quiet, and then bringing it up really, really high, and then ending it quiet as well. Like, we'll bring it up super high volume, and then we'll like bring it back down. And it's like a great way to keep the audience engaged. It's much easier to do that in a lower key where the lower notes are feeding themselves more to the quiet moments, because there's like physics of sound. Like if
Right.
you are singing in a higher key, it's inherently like gonna be louder. I mean, not inherently, like you can experiment with dynamics there as well, but it's easier to make it feel like, oh, we have a softer moment. We have a quieter rage that's kind of simmering here in this lower key. Like I can full belt the, the choruses when we get to the loud moments now, because again, it's in a lower key. So all of that went into informing me changing it.
I was thinking about that first melody, the ooze. It's got a wonderful, like, kind of haunting quality to it. And I don't know if it's just because, it starts in kind of the minor. And one of the things that I like is you perform it at the end of 3 out of the 4 choruses. And just before verse 3, you don't actually include that ooh. So
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. And then I was thinking, oh, but then you kind of reintroduce it in that third chorus just before you go into the bridge, which has the melody is very, very similar.
Yeah.
And what I think is really cool about that you now have contextualized that ooh.
Yes,
so now you've given words to the ooh.
Exactly.
So on the second listen, at the end of the final chorus, you now have kind of those words echoing with that ooh, which you've created a melodic like touchstone that when people return to it and they've heard that melody with words, you can put those words back into it, and it gives that kind of assumed like meaning to that ooh. Anyway, I just thought that was a really interesting way of making that work.
Thank you. I completely forgot. Sometimes I take my songs for granted. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just this. And then I forget all the thought that went into writing it 2 years ago. So yeah, 100%. I liked adding the lyrics into it, which definitely happened after I wrote the music. I liked writing lyrics to that because I was like, I feel like we need not to be religious about it, but a come to Jesus moment where I summarize what the song is about. And a lot of artists will do that in their bridges. Taylor Swift notably does that in her bridges where she's like, here's what I really mean. And I wanted a moment in the bridge where I was like, okay, here's what the problem is. And really the heart of the issue is that some people have too much power and they're trying to hold on to it too hard and they won't let go of it. And also the raising melody, I don't know if I do this in the recording because it's been a minute since I listened to it from 2023. Or now in live performances, I'll do too much power for one person isn't no. So I even bring it up. So it's time to end your capitalist rule. So I will end it out in the kind of roundabout way, in the same melody that we started with. But yeah, I like bringing it up because it's the high point of the song, literally the high point, because it's the highest note in the whole song.
What were you thinking of when you were working on the ukulele rhythm in there? When I first heard it, I was like, oh, it's kind of got a tango kind of feel to it.
Very much.
And one of the things I always think when there is I want to say like a classical idea of a dance or a dance style, whatever that would be, whether it's like a waltz or whatever. The idea is to like convey the idea of two people interacting. Ooh. And I thought it was really interesting. Like when my mind goes, oh, well, it takes two to tango. And it's like, I think in some ways in my brain, I said, well, in some ways we are not only are we focusing on the algorithms and a poor system that we kind of can't escape from, but in some ways we end up having to participate in it. So it's like, we are just I don't mean this in an accusatory way, but it's just like we end up being complicit
Yeah.
by participating in it, and in that
Yeah.
idea that it takes two to tango. And so anyway, that was just one of these things that just popped into my head.
I definitely didn't intend that. Like, that was not intentional, but I do love that interpretation. I like how art can be interpreted so many different ways that the artist didn't think of. Like, I think that's a good thing. Like, yeah. So that's really interesting to hear, because again, like what you said about it taking two to tango, and like, yes, it is the fault of the people who built the system, but we also participate in it. We don't necessarily choose to stop participating in it, but we can choose to stop the system itself once we unite collectively. And therein lies the issue, right? Because that's hard. Easier said than done. But I think that that's a great moment that I really never thought of. So thank you.
Hopefully I don't add too much onto this, but I was just thinking when you were saying that, I'm also, since it is in that kind of reciprocal relationship, it also does say that we are feeding it.
Yes.
And if we figure out some way to stop participating in it, then we stop feeding it from existing. You know, I mean, like, it has to exist because we also exist within it.
Yes.
So, I don't know. I was
withholding labor, like literally general strike is what that's pretty much it. I mean, I think about this all the time, but I was at a socialism conference in the summer in July. One of the plenary speakers was talking about how chattel slavery was abolished by one of the biggest, or possibly the biggest, general strike in U.S. history, which is the enslaved people literally escaping and making their way out of slavery, and that's when the laws started changing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because the legislators saw, well, people are leaving this awful, horrible system that we've created for them. We better make some laws about it so that we can still stay in power and control over these people. Right? Because otherwise, if we don't do anything about it, someone's going to do something about it. And so it's kind of their way of like responding to the times as legislators in order to maintain that power. Whereas who actually got the work done? The people who were escaping out of slavery. And so finding out that that's the way that that like change happens, is like we have to make it happen, and then the legislators will respond, has very much reframed the whole way I think of like social change. Because like, yeah, a lot of the benefits we have in labor now today are related to general strikes, like the 5-day work week, like the 2-day weekend, right? For example, we kind of take that for granted in the Western world, but there were people who went on so many general strikes across the nation that the bosses would send the cops on them and to literally brutalize and kill them. And that's one part of history we definitely don't talk about. And it's basically why we have the 5-day work week, is because people were so stubborn that they withheld their labor because they knew they had to change the system themselves. So taking that power back into their own hands is one great way, and kind of related to the song, because it does take two to tango, and the moment we withhold our labor, we are doing something to actually hurt the system. Another thing about me is I am a huge nerd about labor history, because that's what I wrote my master's thesis on. So I wrote it about labor history, but also like music and labor history. So I was working on my master's thesis actually when I wrote this song. So that makes a lot of sense for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess here's the part where I say, what's my favorite part of the song? And I'm having a little, after talking with you, it's changed a little bit, but I also think that the ooh part is probably one of my favorites, just because it functions so well within kind of an outro to the chorus, but also it gives that context.
Yeah.
Especially once you add to that melody words. It definitely has that opportunity when you listen back to it to be able to have new insights with those words attached. Like, you do too much to preserve the power that you prove through circumstances that you know it to. Did I say that? I did that. Okay.
No, you said it right.
Woo.
It's
no,
kind
I'm notorious at ruining lyrics, so.
No, you didn't ruin it. It's funny because like the actual structure of that bridge is kind of funny, because it's like, you do too much to preserve the power, and you're like, what is the context of that? but it's for the rhyme, right? So
Yeah.
I was like, prove. So you're going you, and you're like, okay, where's this going? Prove through circumstances that you know it too, and you're like, oh, okay, I got you. So it's kind of like revelatory, but gradually you're kind of like not sure where this is going, and then you're like, oh.
Well, and I think the way that's interesting about the way that you're structuring the rhyme scheme is that there's this sense also that it never ends. Like, it's like what's the next sentence? You have to get to the next sentence. You have to keep going in order to get to the end. Like almost, again, that kind of falling thing. I guess I keep thinking about like this, that it's built upon the next sentence, right? Like it just keeps falling and supporting itself because there's always something new to go in there. And if you want to put that in terms of like someone's labor and what they contribute, it's like the only reason it exists is because people are putting time into it and making it continue to support itself.
Facts. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like never ending and perpetual, like the system itself. And that's what the bridge is about. Yeah, the descending melody is very much, I guess, not intentional either. It kind of just felt like, I have a theory that like a lot of melodies in popular music are very like within a certain range, so a smaller range than they used to be, whereas songwriters like Billy Joel, they used a lot of range, and there was a lot of movement. Like they went up and down. Like, what's the one Billy Joel song that I always use an example? Slow down, you crazy child, you're so ambitious for a juvenile, so much to give and so many hours in a day. Okay, we just went through like a whole octave in the first two phrases of that song, and it's like, oh, there's so much happening. And like, I don't think that my melody in this song is as complex as that, but I strive to be like a melodic storyteller, much like Billy Joel and similar artists, because I think like it attracts attention, and repetition is good as well. But yeah, I like to have a lot going on in my songs.
What's your favorite part in the song?
I think there's a number of moments in the song that I really enjoy when I'm performing them live. The one I'm thinking of right now is in the third verse, where it says, lately, my friend had a baby and can't take maternity leave, so they dock her pay after she's gone for like 5 days. I've worked with a lot of musicians in my band over time. One of my, I think it was my bassist or my drummer at the time, Caleb Buey, who's also in Wide Orbit, he's awesome, suggested that we stop during that. So lately, and then can't take docker pay. So basically, like, the chords are sort of stopping, and that's not something you're going to hear in the recording because that was suggested to me after. But it is something we do in live performances now, such that when we do that moment in the song, everybody looks up. Like, even if they're kind of not paying attention to our set, we're kind of just like, lately. And everyone's like, huh? You know, because, like, you didn't kind of expect that start and stop. And I think that those moments where a lot of the time at DIY shows, when you're playing like bars or house shows or whatever, you might not have everyone listening to you all the time. That's kind of how it goes. So having those moments where in the song you're doing something new that is going to like attract the audience's attention, make them go, huh? That's always gold.
Right. It's also interesting, like the way that you described that, I was just like, it sounds very march protesty sounding.
Yeah. Oh,
you know?
Yeah. I didn't even intend that, but that's 100%
I mean, like
true.
the cadence is almost like spot on, you know?
Yeah.
Just
Lately. Da, 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 da. Yeah. You could probably march the song. That would be sick.
Yeah, yeah.
I got to sing this song at a protest one time, and I was like, it's happening, because I think my music was made to be played at protests.
Why did you pick this song as the song you wanted to talk about today?
I think it is, not to be dramatic, but my magnum opus so far. It's the best song I feel like I've written so far. Not that it, you know, couldn't be topped by like another song, but it summarizes what I'm all about. It summarizes why I play music, why I write songs. I think it encapsulates how I feel about the world right now. And even though it's like a 2-year-old song, it's still aged beautifully. Like, it's become more and more relevant as time has gone on. And I feel like, oh yeah, this is always going to be my closer for my shows. So I always play it last at my shows. And it's because we got to save the best for last.
Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, of course, Rebekah, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana music venue, past or present?
Ooh, okay. So I'm not going to be an expert on the scene here because I did just move here this summer. However, I think I really like, there's a couple of venues I want to highlight because I can't stick to just one. I really like the IMC. I think that the IMC is so cool. Their leadership is really awesome. Their values and what they stand for are important to me. We've had some great shows with them. We've had some great experiences with them. And I help run Gender Envy as well. And so Gender Envy is an organization that focuses on highlighting women, non-binary, trans artists, like anything outside of the category of cis male that is, beyond the gender binary, gender non-conforming folks, of course. Our organization exists to highlight those people, especially because we are underrepresented in the music industry. And so trying to not only represent artists and musicians, but also sound engineers, producers, every side of the music industry is eventually where I want to get to. We organize a lot of shows, and we've done several with the IMC already. The IMC was so cool when we needed to change venues last minute for Gender Envy Pride, Champaign-Urbana. So we needed to find a indoor location because our outdoor location was going to be rained out. So we had to find it in 24 hours, and the IMC was like, yes, we'd be happy to do your event. And I was like, wow, really? Thank you so much. So they were genuinely very generous and kind. DJ BJ is awesome. Ty is also awesome. And they just had their 25th anniversary, I believe. So they're really cool. We also had Pocket Fest there where we sold some Gender Envy merch, and that was a really awesome show with a bunch of thrift vendors and DIY vendors. And so, yeah, I've really enjoyed working with them. We also have a show coming out on November 1st, which will be done by the time this podcast comes out, but another Gender Envy show at IMC, which is sick. And another space I wanted to highlight is The Space. Yeah. So The Space is a really cool venue, I think, because it's again, a mid-sized venue. It's accessible for artists who have been in the scene for a few years, but maybe they haven't blown up. And so bands like Emily the Band, Annika Emily, played there a couple nights ago. I got to sing backups for them, which was awesome. Yeah, and there's a room for a lot of people, but you can also eat. You can also, have drinks, which I think is really cool when it's you can eat at the venue too, because I always get hungry during shows, whether I'm playing or I'm watching. It's nice to have food and sustenance, and so The Space is really cool. It's a good, accessible venue for smaller artists. And so, yeah, I think it's important to have those mid-sized venues for artists that are getting started or have been around, but they haven't necessarily reached a certain level of fame and glory. It's nice to be able to play local areas and in comfortable spaces.
I appreciate the idea of a venue that is interested in showcasing different things, just things that are not in the typical mainstream. The IMC has done a great job of hosting a variety of different kinds of voices, and same goes for the space and having an open mic, but also, drag shows and having maybe a headliner that's possibly bigger. They always manage to include some local artists as well, which I don't know. I always think that that's neat to have individuals be able to play or share the stage, so to speak, with somebody that's more well known, so that it draws people in that want to get in earlier, and then they see the opening act. And I don't know, sometimes it's remarkable that is possible here. Yeah,
100%. And it's good for smaller artists to have exposure and to have opportunities to still play gigs. I think it can be hard when a space, like, I don't want to call anyone out, but Bloomington Normal is really struggling with that right now. Like, we don't have many, like, small to mid-sized venues. There are more house shows popping up, which is great, but you also want to be able to, like, play to more open public. Generally, more college-age kids go to the DIY house shows. And we had this great venue called the Coffeehouse, which is where, incidentally, I recorded this song. So shout out to the Coffeehouse for hosting that show. It was a really, really sick venue, and people were just not respecting the space, and they had to close it down, which happens a lot of the time. We are really upset about it. Like, those of us who are organizers in the scene were really devastated when Coffeehouse shut down. And we have hosted like a Gender Envy event there since, because Yvonne, who owns the space, is really, really generous and allowed us to come back for our second ever Gender Envy Fest. So we did have a show there this year, but as a general rule, it is not open as a venue space. So yeah, I think artists just really need like places to perform. Like, open mics can be good when you're just starting out, but open mics are also like hard to continually do if you have like a gig schedule, especially if you've been in the scene for a couple years like myself. I try to go to open mics, but oftentimes I find myself busy. I have 3 different jobs, and I want to be able to like play in spaces. And I definitely am lucky now that I'm in Champaign-Urbana. I feel like there's more opportunities here, but it was difficult for Bloomington Normal for finding like a space to be in. I don't think that's anyone's like fault directly. I think it's a difficulty with the scene. Like, sometimes just third spaces are hard to come by, honestly.
I understand when people are struggling to just make a venue work, you know, and it's definitely not a easy business to be in. It becomes very clear, the standouts, because they're the ones that are, and this is not to call anybody out, but they're the ones that are demonstrating that it's about passion, that they want this to exist.
Yeah.
The venue. I can understand this being a very difficult way to live or operate or sustain. All I have to say is I just appreciate those that continually try to make a venue exist. It's just kind of a shout out appreciation for those that make those happen, DIY, business or otherwise. It's not easy, and we see you. Yes. All I'm saying.
Thank you, venue owners and operators. We owe you so much as artists.
I guess as we're talking about the scene, I wanted to ask you, what do you think makes a good music scene?
There's a couple things that make a good scene for me. One of them is inclusivity. That's very important to me. And there are more and less inclusive scenes I've been a part of. I think inherently the music industry does rely on networking and connections, even at the DIY level. But it seems kind of petty when the venue owners or operators know who you are as a band, but they might not be best buds with you personally, and that's the only reason they won't book you. It's very hard to get started as a small artist no matter where you are, even in the best scenes, the most inclusive scenes. The scene can also unfortunately be really dominated by white people. And I've noticed this in Central Illinois at large. We need to be doing better about that. So more inclusivity for people of color, especially like women and other genders of color. Yeah, inclusivity is very important to me, which is why I started Gender Envy. I think another thing that makes a good scene is good venues, like venues with people who have good intentions and do right by their artists and make sure that they get paid fairly, are not going to screw people over, people who are responsive and communicative. That's a huge thing in the scene. I talk with like a number of other show organizers and they're noticing this as well, where just people are less good at communicating now. So I think responsiveness, communication, even if you can't play a show, just say no. Like, don't ghost us, please. And I also think, like, yeah, like I said, mid-sized venues, small venues are really huge to artists who are getting started, and even artists who have been playing a number of years in the scene. We do love our small and mid-sized venues because those are sometimes the most crucial to an artist's success and an artist's ability to gain an audience.
One of the things as I do this podcast, and the more that I seek out as many people as possible, I appreciate the fact that I've pretty much heard, not to say like to put a big blanket on it, but like I think most people have heard the sad white boy songs. You know what I mean? And
thank you for saying that. But like it does get tired after band after band after band of sad white boy songs. And, you know, it's like sometimes it feels like the same four people, I swear to God. It's just like, I talk about this a lot with my friends. People give the shitty white boys band, they're not shitty people necessarily. I'm saying they're like, suppose they're not the best musicians. Okay, you still gave them a chance. So give us, the other genders, a chance to also prove ourselves and like get better with time. Like just because we're shitty doesn't mean that we can't get better. Well, I'm saying we as if I believe I'm a shitty musician. I don't think that I'm a shitty musician, but I think that like some skills are just built with time and gigging a lot and just being able to practice that skill. If those people are getting a chance, then like give other people a chance. And I think like it comes down to like inherent bias and not necessarily like an intentional exclusion. But I'm saying that in order to be more inclusive, we have to be intentional about it.
Yeah, to me, I've begun to, really look for different stories.
Yeah.
Like I want to experience those different stories. And almost in some ways it's like, let's just say like white, I guess, North American culture has its own like folklore.
Yeah.
So I want to hear about some folklore that's in
outside the United States.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see, that's the thing is like, I understand there's a certain comfort with that too, of you're like, well, I know this story and I can relate to it.
Yeah.
But I think part of what makes it something that we relate to is because it's a story that we've heard a lot. So seek out more stories that you haven't heard and hear those a lot. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's hard, because like, I think personally I struggle with this. I struggle to listen to new artists, not like new artists, but new to me. I'm kind of low-key addicted to like the comfort of my favorite artists. Like I really do struggle with this. This is something I need to grow in, because someone will say you should listen to this band and I'll be like, I'll totally listen to them, and I don't. I'll be honest, that's one of my shortcomings is like, unless I'm really into them immediately, I just like, I'm very loyal in terms of like the music I listen to. It's just good to get out of your comfort zone sometimes, as much as you're able to, and just like open your mind a little bit more, I guess. As much of a message to myself as anyone else.
Right, but also in some ways we shouldn't feel guilty about knowing the things that give us comfort when we need those things to give us comfort. This is not to shame anyone, but I'm not sure I have a good point with that, but it's just like, don't feel bad that you need to find comfort in certain things. Your musical taste is not pie. There's plenty to go around. It doesn't exclude. But anyway, I know that is a certain level of time commitment as well. But we all got to try to figure out ways to be better.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I'd like to think that that's an easy way to just do better. Like just hear different stories and different things. And
well, yeah, that's where you
experience.
can start. Like, that's where we can start for sure. Like, I think stories are important, and people tell a story through their art, including music. And yeah, straight up, sometimes it is that simple. Like, diversify our feed and like diversify the artists we listen to, and those are all good things. It doesn't mean it's always easy, but like sometimes I find that the hard things are the things that are really worth doing.
I don't know why I thought this, but I was just like, yeah, it's like me. Anytime I'm just like, oh, I really want to watch that documentary. I really want to do it. And then I'm just like, oh, I just
not now,
don't feel
though.
like not now.
Not later.
It's in my queue, I swear.
Yeah. I swear to God, I'll do it eventually. And then I never do.
But the thing is like when I eventually see this documentary, somehow through some miraculous, I don't know, intervention, I end up seeing it. It's like, by experiencing a different story or experiencing it from a different viewpoint, it's like that opens me up to care about something more than just what was my original worldview. And I think that's why I'm thinking like as a small step to do better is just like experience more things, and it helps you realize that you should care about these certain other things.
You just made me think of something, which is, what if I have failed to find my favorite artist because I refuse to step outside of my comfort zone? Like, what if my favorite artist is still out there and I just haven't found them yet because I'm like, no, I have to stick to the things that I know. I don't like to think of it as a charity model. Like, I'm not giving these people charity. They're equals who deserve, my ears and my listening capacity. And like one or two of them could be like my new favorite artist for real. And like, that's sick to think that like, oh, what if I think of it that way? Like, I'm getting the opportunity to listen to maybe my new favorite artist.
Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, Rebekah, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
Whoa, wow. Well, I've already talked a lot about labor history and the history of labor music, so I know it's kind of related to music, but yeah, right now I'm on a real streak of like learning about like the political history of the United States and also just what has historically made social change, like the conditions that create social change, but also like what are the actions of the people who have created social change. Just as a brief example, like Rosa Parks, right? We think of her as just, oh, she was a woman on a bus who wanted to have a seat, and she sat down, I think, in the whites only section of the bus. Right. And then they asked her to move when someone white came on the bus, and she refused to move. And we think of that as just, oh, this was a coincidence or sort of happenstance. And in reality, she was a political figure, longtime activist, and that was a very strategic move on the part of the Black civil rights activists who were planning this whole movement. So basically, they chose Rosa Parks tactically, with her consent, I would hope. They chose Rosa Parks to be this person to refuse to back down. And then they used that as a strategic move to launch the boycott against buses. And the boycott ended up affecting a lot of changes in the Black civil rights movement. It's one of those moments that we think of like historically as being very significant, yet in our history textbooks we're taught that, oh, just one time a Black woman sat on a bus and she refused to move. And it's like, no, in the context, she was making a political statement for a boycott, And there were also a lot of other people who refused to move. It wasn't just Rosa Parks. We name her as the person. But there's actually a lot of other examples of this happening. It's just that Rosa Parks happened to be in this political movement, and it was a plan. It was a strategy. So I think of that as like, how are we taught in history books, especially as US citizens, that like, oh, change, it kind of just happens, like people protested, but they were always peaceful. It's like, well, that's actually not true historically. And it's also not true that like it just happened. It's always very tactical and strategic. And so like the stuff that interests me is like, okay, but how? Like what strategies? I think I'm just really interested in like social movements and the details in particular of how they happen and how it is possible to build a social movement.
Rebekah, thank you so much for being on the show and telling me about your song Mayday and how you write and the Champaign-Urbana music scene and your experience with the Champaign-Urbana music scene, and of course your favorite non-musical things. And I really appreciate you coming here and meeting me and telling me about all those things.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for listening to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. This is Rebekah Mangles reminding you great music is out there. Go find it where you live.
That's a wrap.
Champaign is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
Studio South Peter on the inside.
How are we taught in history books, especially as US citizens, that like, oh, change, it kind of just happens, like people protested, but they were always peaceful. It's like, well, that's actually not true historically. And it's also not true that like it just happened.